I often hear the argument that if you take a completely evil character from a story and make them sympathetic in a different version of it, they'll lose what made them interesting and memorable in the first place. Over time, I've learned to take said argument with a grain of salt, because characterization ultimately depends on the type of story being told. And interpretation, in particular, is just that, an interpretation. If written soundly, it could be just as valid as another, and won't necessarily invite a subjective comparison, because by that point, it would simply be a matter of taste. Take Maleficent, for instance. In the animated Disney film Sleeping Beauty, all we know about her is that she wasn't invited to Princess Aurora's christening. She's ostracized by the kingdom for no apparent reason. Therefore, she isn't given an incentive to spare anyone. She never changes throughout the story, unless we count her intensifying desire for victory, nor is that necessary. In a simple good versus evil plot, whereby the goal is to rescue a sleeping princess, she not only serves her purpose, but also makes up for the simplicity with her entertaining menace. If we only saw her in the beginning and at the climax, we would find the overly wholesome and filler-filled film to be quite boring. Now, let's look at Angelina Jolie's Maleficent in the two eponymous live-action films. We discover that she is enthusiastic and capable of love in her backstory. But when her most trusted companion, King Stefan, betrays her, and by extension her entire kingdom of the Moors, she is reasonably livid and closed off. The same thing happens when her adopted daughter, Aurora, believes Queen Ingrid's accusation of her husband's curse against Maleficent. Considering how easily manipulated we humans can be, Ingrid's widespread propaganda is evidence of this. It's no wonder Maleficent loses faith in our kind time and time again. It's a journey for her to not only maintain a relationship with Aurora, but also to try and find her place among humans that isn't constantly threatened. It wouldn't make sense for her to stay wicked throughout the narrative when she has loved ones trying to win her back and skeptics unlearning their beliefs. Keep in mind that I'm only defending Maleficent's character here. The bulk of this franchise, while fun to watch, is an absolute mess. The bond between an unlikely pair and Michelle Pfeiffer's stellar performance as a guileful queen who will stop at nothing to take over the Moors is the only reason to get invested at all. If the sequel focused on Maleficent and Ingrid's dynamic, we might have had a decent film and could have safely excused its predecessor. Instead, we get pure fanfiction in the form of Maleficent's exiled brethren. I prefer the adjective previously non-existent myself, who've somehow been aware of everything happening in these movies and yet did absolutely nothing to intervene before. So, yeah, I don't exactly buy her sudden connection to them, particularly since it's obvious through her stunned reactions that she's never encountered them before in her life. It also begs the question, how has Maleficent been free to roam about as she pleases while everyone else was underground? Add in incompetent fairy stepmothers who were originally supposed to be responsible parents and Maleficent's perfect foil, one-dimensionally idealistic royal folk, slapstick pratfalls that make up the comedic portions in a dark fantasy, 20-minute-long warfare sequences in which most of the characters don't really do anything of import until Maleficent shows up, and you've got yourselves the riff of a lifetime. I normally wouldn't ask for a third film in a case like this. Lord knows, nobody even asked for the first two. But I, ironically, would like to see Ingrid stir up trouble again just for the thrill of it. Seeing as these films have no consistent tone to speak of, Stefan gets killed, but Ingrid is turned into a goat at Aurora's wedding, I think we need the franchise to wrap up with an unapologetic parody of the usual fairy tale tropes.